Document. Part 5. The repairs to the Aurora were proceeding faster than Rachel Dawson had ever imagined possible. The Valeth worked tirelessly, their movements precise and efficient as they integrated human technology with their own advanced systems. Each component they returned was better than before, lighter, stronger, and more reliable. It was a marvel of engineering. But Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Stephen Carter lingered near the edge of the repair chamber, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. He watched the Valeth with narrowed eyes, distrust etched into every line of his face. The alien's glowing forms moved gracefully around him, seemingly oblivious to his unease. But Stephen wasn't fooled. He'd seen too much in his life to take anything at face value, especially when it came to beings from another world. "They're hiding something," he muttered under his breath, though his voice carried through. "The Comes system." Rachel turned to look at him, her brow furrowing slightly. "What makes you say that?" she asked, keeping her tone neutral. She didn't want to provoke an argument, not when things were finally starting to improve. Stephen gestured toward the Valeth technicians. "Look at them. They're too calm, too perfect. Every move they make is calculated, like they're putting on a show for us. And those warnings about the void, they're vague, almost like they're trying to scare us." Rachel hesitated, considering his words. She hadn't missed the cryptic nature of the Valeth's messages either. Their warnings about dangers lurking in the void had been unsettling, but also frustratingly unclear. Still, she couldn't ignore the progress they'd made or the fact that the Aurora was now functional again thanks to their help. "They've given us no reason to doubt them so far," Rachel said carefully. "If they wanted to harm us, they could have done it already. Instead, they've repaired our ship and shared their resources. That has to count for something." Stephen shook his head, unconvinced. "You're trusting them too easily. Just because they've helped us doesn't mean they're harmless. What if this is all part of some bigger plan? What if they're using us? For what?" Rachel shot back, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "We're two people stuck in the middle of nowhere. What possible use could we be to them?" "I don't know," Stephen snapped, his voice rising. "That's the problem. We don't know anything about them. We don't know why they're really helping us, or what they expect in return. All we know is that they're powerful enough to build this place and survive whatever destroyed their homeworld. Do you really think they're doing all this out of the goodness of their hearts?" Rachel opened her mouth to respond, but stopped herself. Deep down, she knew Stephen had a point. The Valeth were enigmatic, their motives hidden behind layers of telepathic communication and symbolic gestures. Even the upgrades to the Aurora felt like gifts with strings attached, though she couldn't figure out what those strings might be. Before the conversation could escalate further, one of the Valeth approached them. Its translucent form shimmered faintly as it extended a hand, drawing their attention. Rachel stepped forward cautiously, sensing urgency in its posture. The alien projected a series of images directly into her mind, bypassing language entirely. She saw flashes of movement, sleek and angular, cutting through the void. They were unlike anything humanity had ever built, yet unmistakably hostile. Weapons fired, energy beams slicing through space. Explosions lit up the darkness, followed by screams and chaos. Then came a single, overwhelming image, a massive vessel, bristling with armaments, emerging from the shadows like a predator stalking its prey. Rachel staggered backward, overwhelmed by the intensity of the vision. Stephen rushed to her side, steadying her with a firm grip on her shoulder. "What did they show you?" he demanded, his voice sharp with concern. "They're coming," Rachel whispered, her voice trembling. "Something's heading this way, something big. The Valeth are afraid of it." Stephen's expression darkened. "Afraid? You mean these aliens, who can zap us with their minds and fix our ship in minutes, are scared of whoever's out there?" Rachel nodded, still trying to process what she'd seen. "They warned us earlier, but I didn't understand. Now it's clear they've been preparing for this. That's why they're helping us. They need allies. Or cannon fodder, Stephen muttered bitterly. Maybe they're setting us up to fight their battles for them. We don't have time to argue about this, Rachel said firmly, her tone regaining strength. Whatever's coming, it's dangerous. If the Valith are afraid of it, then we should be too. We need to decide what we're going to do on fast. Stephen clenched his jaw, his mind racing. He hated the idea of relying on the Valith, but he couldn't deny the reality of their situation. Without the Ark's resources, they'd already be dead. Fighting alongside the aliens might be their only chance of survival. Fine, he said, finally, his voice low. But we stick together. No splitting up, no taking unnecessary risks. If things go south, we leave, no matter what. Agreed, Rachel said, relief washing over her. She turned back to the Vey fight. ***, we cried out to the stars-only Earth, answered our desperate plea. HFY. ***, Daniel Carter leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. The faint hum of machinery filled the room as he stared at the glowing screen before him. It was late. Too late for anyone else to be awake in the observatory, nestled high in the Colorado mountains. Outside, the cold night air pressed against the thick glass windows, and the stars twinkled like distant lanterns scattered across an endless black sea. Daniel sipped his lukewarm coffee, the bitterness lingering on his tongue as he tried to focus. He had been working on this project for months, poring over data collected by the massive radio telescope above him. Most nights ended with nothing but static or, worse, silence. But tonight felt different. Something about the signal caught his attention. At first glance, it seemed like random noise, just another blip in the vast expanse of space. Yet, when Daniel ran it through the analysis software again, patterns began to emerge. Patterns that didn't belong to any known natural phenomenon. His heart raced as he zoomed in on the waveform. It wasn't chaotic like cosmic radiation or pulsars. Instead, it pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Each pulse came at regular intervals, forming what looked like a sequence. Could it really be? No, he told himself. Don't get ahead of yourself. There were plenty of explanations for unusual signals interference from satellites, glitches in the equipment, even human error. Still, something deep inside him whispered that this was special. "Hey," a voice called softly behind him, breaking his concentration. Daniel turned to see Rachel Monroe standing in the doorway, her dark hair tied back into a loose bun. She wore a light jacket over her jeans and held a thermos in one hand. "You're still here. I thought you'd gone home hours ago." "I could say the same about you," Daniel replied with a small smile. He gestured toward the screen. "Take a look at this. Tell me if I'm losing my mind." Rachel stepped closer, setting her thermos down on the desk. Leaning over his shoulder, she studied the display. Her brow furrowed as she processed the information. "This doesn't look like anything we've seen before," she said after a moment. "It's deliberate." "That's what I thought." Daniel sat up straighter, excitement bubbling beneath his calm exterior. "Look at these intervals. They repeat every 10 seconds, and they're consistent. Too consistent to be random. And then there's this." He pointed to a series of spikes in the graph. "These bursts are structured like Morse code, maybe, or something similar." Rachel nodded slowly, her mind racing. If it is intentional, then whoever or whatever sent it knows how to communicate. This isn't just background noise from space. This is a message. The weight of her words hung between them. For years, scientists had speculated about intelligent life beyond Earth. Books, movies, and theories abounded, but no concrete evidence had ever surfaced. Until now. If their interpretation was correct, this signal could change everything. Humanity might finally have proof that it wasn't alone in the universe. But why us? Rachel asked, voicing the question both of them were thinking. Why send a message to Earth? Why now? Daniel shrugged. Maybe it's not specifically for us. Maybe we just happened to pick it up because our technology has advanced enough to detect it. Or maybe, he trailed off, letting the thought hang unfinished. Or maybe it is meant for us, Rachel finished for him. Either way, we can't ignore this. We need to figure out what it means. They spent the next several hours poring over the data, running simulations, and comparing the signal to known phenomena. Every test confirmed their initial suspicion. This was no accident. By dawn, they had isolated a potential pattern within the pulses, a mathematical sequence embedded within the transmission. It wasn't much, but it was a start, as sunlight streamed through the windows. Illuminating the cluttered office, Dr. Linda Hayes arrived. A tall woman with sharp features and an authoritative presence. She immediately noticed the exhaustion etched on Daniel and Rachel's faces. "What's going on?" she asked, her tone sharp but not unkind. "You two look like you haven't slept all night." "We found something," Daniel said, his voice trembling slightly with anticipation. He gestured for her to come closer and explained their discovery. As he spoke, Linda's expression shifted from skepticism to awe. When he finished, she stood silently for a moment, absorbing the implications. "This changes everything," she murmured finally. "If this is real, if this truly is communication from another civilization, we have to respond." Responding, however, wasn't as simple as hitting send. Crafting a reply required careful consideration. What should they say? How could they ensure their message would be understood? After hours of debate, they settled on a plan. Using basic mathematics and universal constants, they encoded a simple greeting along with images of Earth's geography. The team worked tirelessly, double and triple checking every detail to avoid mistakes. Finally, the moment came. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, they transmitted the response into the void. Then, they waited. Days passed without incident, and doubt began to creep in. Had they misinterpreted the original signal? Was it even meant for them? Just as hope started to fade, the equipment picked up another transmission, stronger, clearer, and unmistakably directed at Earth. They answered, Rachel whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the machines. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned to Daniel. They actually answered. For the first time in human history, Earth had made contact with an unknown intelligence. The implications were staggering, but so were the questions. Who or what had sent the signal? What did they want? And most importantly, what would happen next? As word of the discovery spread, the world watched with bated breath. Governments convened emergency meetings. Scientists scrambled to analyze the new data, and ordinary people gazed skyward, wondering if salvation or destruction was on the horizon. For Daniel and Rachel, though, the journey was only beginning. Little did they know, the answers they sought would lead them far beyond the confines of their quiet mountain observatory on into the depths of space itself. Asterisk, asterisk, we cried out to the stars on the earth, answered our desperate plea. HFY, asterisk, asterisk, the signal came again, stronger this time. It wasn't just a faint pulse anymore. It was alive, almost eager, filling the screens in the observatory with a rhythm that seemed to echo through the room. Daniel and Rachel stared at the data, their hearts pounding as they realized what they were witnessing. The response from deep space had arrived faster than anyone expected, confirming beyond doubt that the original transmission had been intentional and received. "It's not random noise," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the excitement bubbling inside her. She pointed to the screen where new patterns emerged, more complex than before. "Look at this. These aren't just pulses. They're instructions." Daniel leaned closer, his fingers flying over the keyboard as he ran the signal through decoding algorithms. The patterns shifted, revealing layers of information embedded within the transmission. Numbers, symbols, and sequences began to align, forming something resembling coordinates. "It's like they're telling us where to go," he murmured, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Or maybe, where they are." Rachel grabbed a notebook and started jotting down notes, her mind racing. If these are coordinates, they're pointing somewhere far out there. She gestured vaguely, toward the ceiling, toward the stars beyond. Proxima Centauri, or maybe even farther. Daniel nodded slowly, his thoughts churning. Whatever it is, we can't ignore it. But responding isn't enough anymore. We need to figure out what they want and why they chose us. News of the discovery spread quickly. Within hours, the small team at the observatory found themselves bombarded with calls from government officials, scientists, and media outlets around the world. Everyone wanted answers, but Daniel and Rachel knew they couldn't provide them yet. All they had were questions that only grew more urgent with each passing day. Dr. Linda Hayes took charge of managing the situation, ensuring the team stayed focused while handling the growing pressure from outside forces. "This isn't just about us anymore," she reminded them during one particularly tense meeting. "If this really is contact with an alien civilization, then humanity needs to be ready for whatever comes next. But how do we prepare for something we don't understand?" Daniel asked, frustration creeping into his voice. "We don't even know if this is friendly or hostile. What if we make a mistake?" Linda sighed, her expression grim. "That's why we have to proceed carefully. Every step we take has to be deliberate. If we respond incorrectly, or worse, aggressively, we could put the entire planet at risk." Rachel chimed in, her tone thoughtful. "What if we send another message? Something clearer this time. Maybe show them we're peaceful." "It's worth a try," Linda agreed. "But we'll need help. This isn't something a handful of people can handle alone." A few days later, a team of experts arrived at the observatory. Among them were linguists, mathematicians, and engineers, tasked with decoding the signal further and crafting a proper reply. One of the newcomers, Alex Parker, stood out immediately. A former astronaut with years of experience in space exploration, he brought a calm confidence to the group that helped ease some of the tension. His presence reassured everyone, including Daniel and Rachel, who had spent nearly every waking moment obsessing over the signal. Alex wasted no time getting involved. After reviewing the data, he suggested adding visual elements to the response. "Mathematics might be universal, but pictures will make things clearer," he explained. "Let's include diagrams of our solar system, images of Earth, and maybe even representations of human beings." The idea sparked a flurry of activity. Together, the team worked tirelessly to create a comprehensive message. They included basic mathematical concepts, chemical formulas, and depictions of DNA, all designed to demonstrate humanity's intelligence and peaceful intentions. When the final version was ready, they transmitted it into space once again, hoping against hope that it would reach its intended audience. Days turned into weeks as they waited for another response. The silence was agonizing, stretching thin across the collective nerves of everyone involved. Doubts crept in. Had they misunderstood the signal? Was it possible they'd misinterpreted the coordinates entirely? Then, late one night, the equipment buzzed to life. A new transmission flooded the screens, stronger and more intricate than anything they'd seen before. The patterns were unmistakable. Confirmation, whoever or whatever had sent the original signal had understood their reply. More importantly, they were willing to communicate further. "This changes everything," Rachel whispered, staring at the glowing display. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her notebook. "They're not just acknowledging us, they're inviting us." "Inviting us where?" Daniel asked, leaning forward. His exhaustion melted away, replaced by a mix of awe and apprehension. "To meet them. To come to their location." Rachel nodded slowly. "That's what it looks like. The coordinates are still there, clearer now than ever. And..." She hesitated, glancing at the others. There's something else. Another layer to the message. What is it? Alex asked, stepping closer. Rachel swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. Warnings. About danger. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed her words. Warnings. Danger. What did it mean? Were they being lured into a trap? Or was the signal meant to protect them from some unknown threat? We need to decode it fully, Linda said finally, breaking the silence. Her tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. Find out exactly what they're trying to tell us, and fast. As the days passed, the team unraveled more of the message. Embedded within the warnings were fragments of what appeared to be historical records, images, and symbols depicting destruction on a massive scale. Entire planets reduced to rubble. Civilizations wiped out in moments. Whatever force had caused such devastation. It was clear the senders feared its return. They're warning us about something, Alex said during one of their late-night brainstorming sessions. He gestured to the decoded images displayed on the wall. Something big, something catastrophic. But what? Daniel asked, frustration evident in his voice. Are they talking about war? Natural disasters? Or something else entirely? No way to know for sure, Rachel admitted. But one thing's certain. They think we're in danger, and they want us to act. The implications weighed heavily on everyone. If the warnings were accurate, then humanity was facing a threat unlike anything it had encountered before. But acting on incomplete information carried risks of its own. How could they trust a message from an unknown source? What if this was all part of some elaborate deception? Despite the uncertainty, one fact remained undeniable. Doing nothing wasn't an option. The signal had given them a choice to stay ignorant and vulnerable, or to seek answers, no matter how daunting the journey might be. We need to go, Alex declared suddenly, his voice cutting through the haze of doubt. All eyes turned to him. If these coordinates lead to whoever sent the signal, then we owe it to ourselves and to humanity to find out why. We can't let fear stop us. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, heads began to nod in agreement. It was a reckless decision, perhaps even foolish. But it was also necessary. Humanity's survival might depend on taking that leap into the unknown. Plans were set in motion almost immediately. NASA assembled a team to embark on the mission, selecting individuals based on their skills and ability to adapt to unpredictable situations. Alex volunteered, without hesitation, knowing full well the dangers involved. Joining him was Samantha Reed, a brilliant biologist whose expertise in alien ecosystems made her invaluable. Others rounded out the crew, each bringing unique talents to the table. Back at the observatory, Daniel and Rachel continued analyzing the signal, extracting every scrap of information they could. Their work became the foundation for the mission, guiding the design of the spacecraft and the strategies the crew would use upon arrival. Meanwhile, Dr. Linda Hayes coordinated efforts between governments and scientific organizations, ensuring global cooperation in humanity's first interstellar endeavor. As preparations progressed, emotions ran high. Families said tearful goodbyes. Reporters swarmed launch sites, capturing every detail for audiences worldwide. And amidst it all, the crew prepared themselves mentally and physically for the challenges ahead. On the eve of departure, Alex stood alone on a balcony overlooking the launch facility. The stars glittered overhead, distant and indifferent. He thought about the journey that awaited them, the vast emptiness of space, the mysteries they hoped to uncover, and the possibility that they might never return. Yet beneath the weight of uncertainty lay a flicker of hope. For the first time in history, humanity was reaching out not just to explore, but to connect, to survive. Behind him, Samantha joined him silently, her arms crossed against the cool night air. "You okay?" she asked softly. Alex nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" "Everything," he replied after a pause. What we're leaving behind, what we're heading toward, whether we're ready for any of it. Samantha smiled faintly. We won't know until we get there, but one thing's for sure. We're doing something incredible, something that matters. ***, we cried out to the stars only together. They stood in silence, watching as the countdown clock ticked steadily toward 0. Tomorrow, they would leave Earth behind, vent. ***, we cried out to the stars on the Earth, answered our desperate plea. HFY, ***, the spacecraft Odyssey, stood tall on the launch pad, gleaming under the bright floodlights. It was a marvel of human engineering, designed for a mission unlike any other, with its sleek silver exterior and reinforced hull, built to withstand the harsh conditions of deep space. It represented humanity's hope and its desperation. The countdown had begun, each tick echoing through the control room like a heartbeat. Inside the craft, Alex Parker and Samantha Reed sat strapped into their seats, their faces calm but their minds racing. Alex glanced at Samantha, who was checking the straps of her harness one last time. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight ponytail, and her sharp green eyes reflected both determination and unease. You ready for this? He asked, his tone light, despite the gravity of the moment. As ready as I'll ever be, she replied, forcing a smile. It's not every day you get to ride a rocket to another star system. Alex chuckled softly, though his own nerves were tugging at him. He'd been in space before, but never on a mission like this. This wasn't just about exploration, it was about survival. If the warnings from the signal were true, then failure wasn't an option. They had to succeed for Earth, for everyone they'd left behind. The voice of Mission Control crackled through their headsets. T-minus 10 minutes, and counting. All systems are go. Samantha took a deep breath, her fingers brushing against the small photo taped to the edge of her console. It was a picture of her younger brother, taken years ago during a family vacation. She hadn't told anyone, but she carried it with her everywhere, reminder of why she was doing this. For him, for everyone, as the engines roared to life. The vibrations shook the entire craft. Flames erupted beneath the ship, bathing the launch pad in an orange glow. For a brief moment, Alex felt weightless, suspended between Earth and the infinite expanse above. Then, with a deafening roar, Odyssey surged upward, piercing the sky. The G-forces pressed down on them, squeezing their bodies into their seats. Outside the windows, the blue curve of Earth grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared entirely. The blackness of space enveloped them, vast and unyielding. Alex stared out at the stars, feeling a mix of awe and insignificance. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries, and now here they were, hurtling toward the unknown. Once they reached orbit, the crew began the next phase of their journey. The spacecraft's advanced propulsion system would take them far, beyond the reach of traditional rockets. But even with cutting-edge technology, the trip to Proxima Centauri would take years. To survive such a long voyage, they relied on cryosleep chambers pods that slowed their metabolism to a near standstill, preserving their bodies while time marched on outside. Before entering cryosleep, Alex gathered the team for a final briefing. This is it, he said, his voice steady. Once we're in those pods, there's no turning back. We won't wake up until we're close to our destination. So let's make sure everything's ready before we go. One by one, the crew members double-checked their equipment, securing loose items and ensuring all systems were functioning properly. Samantha lingered near the observation window, staring out at the endless void. It's strange, she murmured, almost to herself. Out there, it feels so empty. But somewhere, in all that emptiness, there's something waiting for us. Alex joined her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. That's what we signed up for. She nodded, managing a small smile. Yeah, let's just hope we're prepared. When the time came, The crew climbed into their cryopods, lying back as the lid sealed shut above them. The hum of machinery filled the cabin as the pods began their work, cooling the air and slowing their heartbeats. Within moments, consciousness slipped away, leaving only dreams or, perhaps, nothing at all. Years passed in what felt like seconds. The Odyssey drifted silently through space, guided by its automated systems. Back on Earth, people watched anxiously as updates trickled in. From the distant spacecraft, scientists monitored the mission closely, analyzing data and preparing for whatever lay ahead. Meanwhile, Rachel Monroe and Daniel Carter continued studying the original signal, searching for any clues they might have missed. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the cryopods hissed open. Alex blinked groggily, his body stiff and disoriented as he adjusted to being awake again. Around him, the rest of the crew stirred, groaning as they regained awareness. Samantha sat up slowly, rubbing her temples. "How long was I out?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Long enough," Alex replied, offering her a hand. "Welcome back." They floated out of their pods, stretching sore muscles and adjusting to the low gravity of the spacecraft. Outside the windows, a faint red glow illuminated the darkness. Proxima Centauri burned brightly in the distance, its light casting eerie shadows across the cabin. They were close now, close to the coordinates embedded in the signal. Over the next few hours, the crew prepared for arrival. Instruments scanned the area, mapping the surrounding space and identifying potential hazards. What they found left them stunned: a massive structure floating in orbit around a barren, rocky planet. It was enormous, larger than anything humans had ever constructed. Its surface shimmered with an iridescent metallic sheen, reflecting the dim light of the nearby star. "That's it," Samantha whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "That has to be where the signal came from." Alex nodded, his jaw tightening. "Let's find out." As the Odyssey approached the structure, the crew activated the ship's external cameras, capturing detailed images of the mysterious object. Up close, it looked even more alien. Strange patterns covered its surface, shifting and flowing like liquid metal. There were no visible entrances or markings, just smooth, seamless walls that seemed to stretch endlessly. "We need to get inside," Alex said, his tone resolute. "If there's information in there, we can't leave without finding it." "But how?" Samantha asked, frowning. "There's no door, no obvious way in." Alex studied the monitors, his mind racing. "Maybe we don't need a door. Look at these patterns, they're reacting to our presence. Maybe there's some kind of interface." With a nod from the crew, Alex maneuvered the Odyssey closer, positioning the ship near one of the shifting sections. As they watched, the patterns began to change, forming intricate designs that pulsed with energy. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark tunnel leading inside. "Well," Alex said dryly, "that answers that question." The crew suited up, strapping on helmets and checking their oxygen levels. Armed with handheld scanners and tools, they stepped cautiously into the structure. The air inside was cool and still, carrying a faint metallic scent. The walls glowed faintly, casting an otherworldly light over the corridor. Their footsteps echoed softly as they moved deeper, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. "This place gives me the creeps," one of the crew members muttered, gripping his scanner tightly. "Stay focused," Alex reminded them. "We're here for answers. Keep your eyes open." As they ventured further, the architecture became increasingly complex. Organic shapes intertwined with mechanical components, creating a hybrid design that defied logic. Samantha stopped to examine a cluster of crystalline formations embedded in the wall. "These look biological," she said, running her gloved fingers over the surface. "Like living metal. Living metal." Another crew member repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Is that even possible?" "It shouldn't be," Samantha admitted. "But neither should most of this." Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Alarms blared from their suits, warning of an unknown energy spike. "What's happening?" someone shouted, panic creeping into their voice. "Stay calm," Alex barked, scanning the area. "Everyone, stay together." Before they could react, holographic projections sprang to life around them. Images of destruction unfolded in vivid detail, planets crumbling, civilizations collapsing, entire solar systems consumed by a swirling black mass. The crew froze, transfixed by the horrifying scenes. "They're showing us something," Samantha said, her voice trembling. "A warning. Whatever destroyed them, it's coming for us too." Alex clenched his fists, his mind racing. "Then we need to find out how to stop it, fast." The projections shifted, revealing new images, diagrams of a device, instructions for assembly, and symbols indicating urgency. The message was clear. Humanity had a chance, but only if they acted quickly. "We've got our work cut out for us," Alex said grimly. "Let's get to it." The crew exchanged determined looks, knowing the stakes had never been higher. Whatever awaited them inside the structure, they couldn't afford to fail. Not when the fate of Earth depended on their success. Asterisk, asterisk, we cried out to the stars only, Earth answered, our desperate plea. HFY, asterisk, asterisk. The holographic projections continued to play around them, filling the corridor with ghostly images of devastation. Planets shattered into fragments, stars dimmed and vanished, and entire civilizations were wiped away in moments. The crew of Odyssey stood frozen, their breaths shallow as they absorbed the horrifying scenes. Each image was accompanied by strange symbols that pulsed faintly, almost like a language trying to communicate across time and space. Samantha Reed stepped closer to one of the projections, her eyes narrowing as she studied the shifting patterns. "These symbols, they're instructions," she said, her voice steady, despite the tension in the air. "They're telling us how to build something, a device." Alex Parker moved beside her, his gaze scanning the glowing designs. "A weapon?" he asked, his tone cautious. "Not exactly," Samantha replied, shaking her head. "It's more like a shield, or maybe a disruptor. Whatever it is, it's supposed to stop whatever destroyed those planets." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The implications were clear. Humanity wasn't just dealing with an alien signal anymore. They were facing a cosmic threat, one capable of erasing entire star systems from existence. And now, they had a blueprint for survival, but deciphering it wouldn't be easy. "We need to document everything," Alex said firmly, breaking the silence. "Take pictures, record notes. Every detail could matter." The team sprang into action, pulling out handheld scanners and cameras to capture the holograms. Samantha focused on the symbols, sketching them onto a tablet while muttering under her breath. "This part looks like a power source, and this might be some kind of stabilizer." Her voice trailed off as she worked, piecing together fragments of understanding. As they recorded the information, the structure itself seemed alive, responding to their presence. The walls shimmered slightly, and soft hums echoed through the corridors, almost like whispers. It was unsettling, but also strangely beautiful, as if the creators of this place were watching and guiding their every move. Hours passed, and the crew pressed deeper into the labyrinthine structure. The corridors twisted and turned unpredictably, leading them through chambers filled with strange machinery and glowing artifacts. Some rooms appeared functional, with consoles and panels that lit up when touched. Others were barren, their purpose unclear. Despite the eerie atmosphere, the crew couldn't help but marvel at the craftsmanship. The blend of organic and mechanical elements suggested a level of technology far beyond anything humanity had achieved. "This place feels abandoned," one of the crew members remarked as they entered yet another empty chamber. His name was Eric, a young engineer who had joined the mission with dreams of exploring alien worlds. Now, surrounded by the remnants of an advanced civilization, He looked both awestruck and unnerved. "Do you think whoever built this is still here?" "I don't know," Alex admitted, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. "But we can't assume we're alone. Stay alert." Samantha nodded in agreement, her focus shifting to a nearby console. She tapped a few buttons experimentally, and the screen flared to life, displaying streams of data written in the same alien script they'd seen earlier. "This must be some kind of archive," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "If we can decode it, we might learn more about what happened to them." Eric joined her, pulling out a portable translation device. "Let's see if this thing can make sense of it," he said, connecting the device to the console. The machine whirred softly as it processed the information, translating fragments of text into basic English. "They were running out of time," Samantha read aloud, her brow furrowed. "Their world was dying. They tried to fight back, but it was too late." Alex stepped closer, his expression grim. "Whatever it is, it's coming for us too. That's why they sent the signal to warn us." The realization hung heavy in the air. This wasn't just a relic of a lost civilization. It was a message in a bottle, cast into the void in the hope that someone would find it and survive where they had failed. For the first time, the weight of their mission truly sank in. They weren't explorers anymore, they were humanity's last line of defense. As they continued their exploration, the crew encountered challenges that tested their resolve. In one chamber, they found themselves trapped when the entrance sealed shut behind them. Panic set in as they searched for a way out, their flashlights casting frantic beams across the smooth, unyielding walls. Finally, Samantha noticed a panel etched with familiar symbols. "It's a puzzle," she said, her voice calm despite the urgency of the situation. "We have to solve it to open the door." Working together, the team deciphered the sequence, inputting commands based on the patterns they'd seen earlier. With a low rumble, the wall slid open, revealing a narrow passageway beyond. Relief washed over them as they hurried through, but the incident left them shaken. This place wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it was designed to test intruders, ensuring only the worthy could access its secrets. In another room, they discovered what appeared to be a simulation chamber. Holograms projected lifelike scenarios, forcing the crew to navigate treacherous environments and solve complex problems. At first, they thought it was part of the structure's defenses, but Samantha realized something else. "It's training us," she said, her eyes widening with understanding. "Whoever built this wanted to prepare us for what's coming." Alex clenched his jaw, determination hardening his features. "Then let's prove we're ready." Despite the obstacles, the crew made steady progress. They gathered enough data to begin piecing together the design of the device described in the holograms, according to the blueprints. It required materials and components that didn't exist on Earth, but the structure itself seemed to hold the answers. Hidden alcoves contained crystalline objects that pulsed with energy, while other chambers housed machinery capable of synthesizing exotic alloys. "This is incredible," Samantha murmured as she examined one of the crystals. "If we can replicate this technology, it could change everything." "But we don't have time for that," Alex reminded her gently. "Our priority is building the device. Everything else will have to wait." By the time they reached the heart of the structure, exhaustion had begun to take its toll. The journey had been grueling, both physically and mentally, but the stakes kept them moving forward. The central chamber was unlike anything they'd seen before, vast dome, filled with swirling lights and floating platforms. At its center stood a pedestal, glowing faintly, as if beckoning them closer. "That's it," Samantha whispered, her voice trembling with anticipation. "The core of the station. This is where the final piece of the puzzle is." As they approached the pedestal, the room shifted around them. The lights intensified, and the platforms rearranged themselves, forming a path to the center. When Alex placed his hand on the pedestal, a surge of energy coursed through him, and the holograms reappeared, clearer and more detailed than ever. "You've proven yourselves worthy," A voice echoed, deep and resonant. It wasn't human, but it carried a sense of authority and wisdom. Take what you need to protect your world, but remember, time is short. The reaping approaches. The reaping, Alex repeated, his heart pounding. What is it? The voice didn't answer directly. Instead, the pedestal emitted a burst of light, and a small metallic object materialized in Alex's hand. It was compact but intricate, covered in the same alien script they'd been studying. This is the key, the voice continued. Use it wisely. Before anyone could ask more questions, the chamber began to dim, the lights fading until only the glow of the pedestal remained. The crew stood in stunned silence, clutching the precious artifact and wondering what lay ahead. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew reviewed their findings, piecing together the final steps needed to construct the device. The key provided critical insights, unlocking additional layers of the blueprints and revealing methods to adapt the technology for use on Earth. As they plotted their course home, a mixture of hope and dread settled over them. They had succeeded in retrieving the plans, but the hardest part was yet to come. Out in the void, the stars burned brightly, indifferent to the struggles of the tiny beings who dared to reach for them. Yet somewhere among those distant lights, a shadow loomed, the reaping, drawing closer with each passing moment. Humanity's fate rested in the hands of a few brave souls who had ventured into the unknown. Whether they would succeed or fail remained unwritten, but one thing was certain: they had faced the darkness and refused to give up, and that, perhaps, was the greatest victory of all.